I'm a nutritionist and author, and I'd like to speak to you about the role of soy foods in growing healthy children. Now, in recent times, there's been a great deal of interest in the role of soy foods in the prevention of chronic diseases. In fact, studies have shown that soy foods can help reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease, that means heart disease and stroke. They can lower your cholesterol, your blood pressure, and that they may also play a role in reducing the risk of prostate cancer, breast cancer, and potentially some other cancers, as well as affecting conditions like osteoporosis. But the question is, what role do soy foods have to play in the diets of children? And do these foods have any long-term, far-reaching effects? Or does soy have a dark side? There's been a lot of discussion and debate in the media about these issues, and unfortunately not all of the information is in. But we do have a lot more information now than ever before. But first, let's just remind ourselves what some of the key health issues are that our children are facing today. Firstly, if we look at the rates of overweight and obesity in our country, figures suggest that about 25% of kids are now overweight and obese. And in fact, in some population groups, up to about 30% of children fit into this category. Why is this a problem? Well, it's a problem for many reasons, but even before I discuss why it's a problem, let me tell you what else is concerning us, and that is that the rates of obesity and overweight are growing dramatically. For example, overweight has doubled and obesity has tripled when we look at a period of, say, over 10 years. So kids are getting fatter, and they're getting fatter quicker and earlier than they used to in the past. Now, obesity in itself is a predisposing factor to many health problems and conditions, such that type 2 diabetes, formerly known as, in fact, maturity onset diabetes, had to be renamed because young children, were developing this type of diabetes more often than even type 1 in population groups where there was a high prevalence of overweight and obesity, and the kids were being very inactive. In addition to that, overweight and obese children also have much higher risks of having a high cholesterol level and high blood pressure. Other indicators for poor health to come. Also, constipation, something that can easily be prevented by the right diet and lifestyle, is quite frequent in young children. Did you know that 25% of the visits to a pediatric gastroenterologist are in fact to manage constipation? And yet, moms and dads can manage constipation fairly easily at home at the dining room table. So children today are starting to suffer from the chronic diseases that adults used to develop in the past. Now diseases are coming on earlier, and I think they're linked primarily to an unhealthy Western lifestyle. Now, of course, diet is only one part of the picture, but it's something that's under our control, and we can influence what our children do by role modelling and also by the kind of foods that we provide on the family meal table. Now, in an effort to help educate parents and carers and to support them, the government has put out various guidelines to help us choose healthy foods for our children. Most recently, the National Health and Medical Research Council released the latest version of the dietary guidelines specifically for children and adolescents. And whilst there are several points to be mentioned, I thought I'd introduce you to one of the key guidelines, which sets the stage for the kind of foods that our children should be eating in their diet and more regularly. Let's have a look at the list. Firstly, children and adolescents should be encouraged to eat plenty of vegetables, legumes, of course means beans such as soy, lentils, chickpeas, and fruits. Secondly, they should eat plenty of cereals, and preferably these should be the whole grain or whole meal variety as compared to the white types. Thirdly, they should include lean meats, fish, poultry and/or alternatives, and some milk, yogurts, cheese or alternatives, and to choose water as a drink. Now notice the different wording here in these different guidelines. Eat plenty is specifically mentioned in reference to vegetables, beans, fruits and grains. And if you actually read the section on this dietary guideline, soy is one of the foods, one of the legumes that gets a specific mention. So there's quite a lot of agreement that these kind of foods are excellent foods for children and should be included as part of a varied diet. Interestingly, in South Africa, where they fairly recently developed a new set of food-based dietary guidelines, soybeans and soy foods get a specific mention directly in the guideline, as these foods are considered to provide many nutritional benefits, both for people that are not well off and poor, as well as for the rich and famous, which are suffering from the chronic diseases usually much earlier. So what's in soybeans? These humble little beans that's so good for us from a nutritional perspective. Let's take a look. Firstly, soybeans and soy foods in general provide a type of protein that comes from a plant food. It's not a protein derived from an animal product. And we know that plant proteins are very protective and they help to lower blood cholesterol levels. We've also known since the 1930s that eating animal proteins actually helps to cause hardening of the arteries. This was first shown, did some studies with rabbits, and has been shown many times over and over again with all kinds of different animal species. So plant proteins do have some advantages in terms of long-term chronic disease risk, potentially over animal proteins. Secondly, soybeans and soy foods don't contain any preformed cholesterol. Why? Because they're a plant food and no plant food contains cholesterol. Thirdly, they're low in saturated fats. Now, whilst years ago you might have been told to cut down on all fats, eat a low-fat diet, we now know that that was not the correct or best advice. We should cut down on forms of saturated fats or animal fats, but plant fats found in whole foods, such as avocado or nuts and seeds, are in fact highly, highly protective. Next, soy foods and soybeans can be a source of omega-3 fatty acids. They also provide dietary fibre in most cases, unless it's a refined soy food where the fibre's been removed. Also, they don't contain lactose naturally. And in Australian society, which is multi-ethnic, this is an important consideration. Many people, including Caucasians, but also in particular people from Asian backgrounds and Aboriginal societies, don't tolerate lactose, which is the type of sugar found in dairy products. Soybeans and soy foods can also supply a good source of calcium and other vitamins and minerals. But I guess when it comes to health effects, where the huge interest in research is at the moment,